What up, everyone? This is Mr. Lord, Dr. Professor, Dark Joker, with another edition of Where, Pick, and Dare, where I pick games for the various games that are occurring tomorrow. Whether it's football, baseball, basketball, basically whatever games I want to pick, I will pick them. With all that being said, on with the video. College men's basketball. Michigan Wolverines versus Iowa Hawkeyes. Michigan is a 77.5% chance to win. Iowa has a 22.5% chance to win. This is at Iowa. So Michigan's 3 in nation, 27-2 record. Iowa's unranked, 20-9 record. For stats, Michigan has more points per game, points against, higher field goal percentage, more rebounds per game, assists per game, blocks per game, and Iowa's more steals per game. The only stats that are really big difference here are points per game and rebounds per game. Points per game is a 13.3 difference in favor of Michigan, and rebounds per game is a 10.9 difference in favor of Michigan. So despite the home field advantage that Iowa has, I think with the points per game difference and the rebounds per game difference, I think Michigan will beat Iowa tomorrow. College women's basketball. Clemson Tigers versus Virginia Cavaliers. This is part of the second round of the ACC tournament. Clemson has a 40.8% chance to win, and Virginia has a 59.2% chance to win. This is part of the ACC tournament, so it's like in Duluth. So yeah, Clemson's unranked 20-10 record, Virginia's unranked 19-10 record. So for stats, Clemson has more points per game, Virginia has more points against. Virginia's a higher field goal percentage, more rebounds per game, assists per game, blocks per game, and steals per game. These stats are pretty close. So Clemson is closer to Duluth than Virginia is. Don't necessarily know how much that'll matter much. Clemson is relatively close to the Georgia border, so like that could help. And it could be interesting. So with that, there's probably means there's a lot more Clemson fans in the area than Virginia fans. So I think Clemson will beat Virginia tomorrow. Miami Hurricanes versus Notre Dame Fighting Irish. This is part of the second round of the ACC tournament. So Miami's unranked 17-13 record. Notre Dame's unranked 20-9 record. For stats, Notre Dame has more points per game. Miami has more points against. Notre Dame's a higher field goal percentage. Miami has more rebounds per game. Notre Dame has more assists per game, blocks per game, and steals per game. These stats are pretty close. So with this game being in Duluth, Georgia, I don't know if the home field advantage is gonna matter much here. Not really. Notre Dame does have more wins, and obviously they're a bigger name in women's basketball. So I think Notre Dame will beat Miami tomorrow. California Golden Bears versus Syracuse Orange. This is part of the second round of the ACC tournament. So Cal is unranked, 19-13 record. Syracuse is unranked, 22-7 record. For stats, Syracuse is more points per game. Points against is even. Field goal percentage is even. Syracuse has more rebounds per game. Cal has more assists per game. Syracuse has more blocks per game and steals per game. These stats are pretty close. This is and Georgia, so obviously both these schools are a big distance away from both of them. Like, there ain't gonna be too much of a crowd for either of them, I don't think, for these two schools. So yeah, I mean, basically, like, it could end up coming down to, the points difference. It's not much. It's like a 5.6 difference, you know. Yeah, obviously Syracuse does more rebounds, more blocks, more steals. I mean, with all of that, I mean, it's close, but it is higher. So I think Syracuse will beat California tomorrow. Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets versus Virginia Tech Hokies. So Georgia Tech is unranked 14-17 record. Virginia Tech's unranked 22-8 record. For stats, Virginia Tech has more points per game. Georgia Tech has more points against. Virginia Tech has higher field goal percentage. Georgia Tech has more rebounds per game. Assists per game is even. Uh, Virginia Tech has more blocks per game and steals per game. These stats are pretty close. But with the losing record Georgia Tech has, and with the winning record Virginia Tech has, I think Virginia Tech will beat Georgia Tech tomorrow. Kansas State Wildcats versus Texas Tech Red Raiders. Kansas State is unranked 16-16 record. Texas Tech's 21 nation, 25-6 record. So this game is in, Kansas City, Missouri. This is part of second round of the Big 12 tournament. Yeah, so for stats, Texas Tech has more points per game. Kansas State has more points against. Texas Tech has a higher field goal percentage and has more rebounds per game, assists per game, blocks per game, and steals per game. These stats are pretty close. I mean, Missouri is closer, probably closer to Kansas State than Texas Tech, but with the record each team has, and with Texas Tech being ranked, I think Texas Tech beat Kansas State tomorrow. BYU Cougars versus Utah Utes. So BYU's on. This is part of the second round of the Big 12 tournament. BYU is unranked 21-10 record. Utah is unranked 19-11 record. For stats, BYU has more points per game. Utah has more points against. Has a higher field goal percentage. BYU has more rebounds per game. Utah has more assists per game. BYU has more blocks per game and steals per game. Since this is part of the Big 12 tournament, this is in Kansas City, Missouri. Long distance for both teams. So I don't think home advantage is going to matter here. So yeah. So with BYU having a better record, having more points per game and less points against, I think BYU will beat Utah tomorrow. Arizona State Sun Devils versus Iowa State Cyclones. This is part of the second round of the Big 12 tournament. So Arizona State's unranked 23-9 record. Iowa State's unranked 22-8 record. For stats, Iowa State has more points per game, points against, higher field goal percentage, more rebounds per game, assists per game. Arizona State has more blocks per game and steals per game. So this game's in Kansas State, Missouri. Not really close for either team. So the only stat that's really a big difference is points per game. It's a 15.8 difference in favor of Iowa State. So with that, I think Iowa State will beat Arizona State tomorrow. USC Trojans versus Washington Huskies. USC is a 63.1% chance to win. Washington is a 36.9% chance to win. This is part of the second round of Big Ten tournament, so this is in Indianapolis, Indiana. So USC's unranked 17-12 record. Washington's unranked 20-9 record. For stats, Washington has more points per game. USC has more points against. Washington has a higher field goal percentage and has more rebounds per game. USC has more assists per game, blocks per game, and steals per game. These stats are pretty close. So yeah, these stats are pretty. Home field advantage is not really a thing here with where it's at. Washington does have a better record. Since that's a better, USC is given a higher percent chance to win. For a reason, has a decent margin. So yeah, I think USC will beat Washington tomorrow. Indiana Hoosiers versus Ohio State Buckeyes. Indiana's unranked, 18-13 record. Ohio State's 11 nation, 24-6 record. So this is part of the second round of the Big Ten tournament. So this is in Indianapolis, Maryland. So there should be a home field advantage for Indiana. So for stats, Ohio State has more points per game. Indiana has more points against and has a higher field goal percentage. Ohio State has more rebounds per game, assists per game, blocks per game, and steals per game. The only stat that's really a big difference is points per game, which is a 11.2 difference in favor of Ohio State. So despite the home field advantage Indiana has with the points per game advantage, I think Ohio State beats Indiana tomorrow. Illinois fighting Illini versus Michigan State Spartans. This is part of the second round of the Big Ten tournament. Illinois is unranked, 20-10 record. Michigan State's 18 nation, 22-7 record. For stats, Michigan State has more points per game. Illinois has more points against. Michigan State has a higher field goal percentage. Illinois has more rebounds per game. Michigan State has more assists per game, blocks per game, and steals per game. These stats are pretty close. It could be an interesting game. This is in, Indianapolis, Indiana. Could be an interesting game, But with Michigan State being ranked, where they are, I think Michigan State will beat Illinois tomorrow. Kentucky Wildcats versus Georgia Bulldogs. This is part of the second round of the SEC tournament. Kentucky is 17 nation, 22-9 record. Georgia's 22 nation, 22-8 record. So this is in Greenville, South Carolina. Yeah. So yeah, this could be an interesting game. For stats, Kentucky has more points per game. Georgia has more points against. And has a higher field goal percentage. Kentucky has more rebounds per game, assists per game, blocks per game, and Georgia has more steals per game. These stats are pretty close. Yeah, this, with it being Greenville, and as far as distance, I'm sure it's closer to Georgia than it is to Kentucky. I think it could still be a good game. I think with Kentucky being higher ranked, and with having more points per game and having less points against, I think Kentucky beats Georgia tomorrow. Florida Gators versus Oklahoma Sooners. This is part of the second round of the SEC tournament. Florida's unranked, 18-14 record. Oklahoma's 7 nation, 23-6 record. For stats, Oklahoma has more points per game, points against, field goal percentage is even. Oklahoma has more rebounds per game, assists per game, blocks per game, and steals per game. The only stats that are really big difference are points per game and rebounds per game. So for points per game, it's a 14.0 difference in favor of Oklahoma. For rebounds per game, it's a 11.3 difference in favor of Oklahoma. So this game's in Greenville, so home field advantage is not gonna matter here. But rebounds per game, points per game, that will matter. So I think Oklahoma will beat Florida tomorrow. Auburn Tigers versus Ole Miss Rebels. This is part of the second round of the SEC tournament. Auburn's unranked 15-16 record. Ole Miss is 24 nation, 21-10 record. For stats, Ole Miss has more points per game. Auburn has more points against. Ole Miss is a higher field goal percentage and has more rebounds per game, assists per game, blocks per game, and Auburn has more steals per game. So this game's in Greenville, South Carolina, so I don't think home field advantage is gonna matter. Now the only stat that's really big difference is points per game. It's a 15.6 difference in favor of Ole Miss. So with that, I think Ole Miss beats Auburn tomorrow.
NBA.
Golden State Warriors versus Houston Rockets. The Warriors have a 37.4% chance to win, and the Rockets have a 62.6% chance to win. This is at Houston. For injuries for the Warriors, Curry, Porzingis, Richard, and Moody are out, and Peyton the second's a game time decision. For the Rockets, Thompson, Smith Jr., and Singin are game time decisions. Tate's out, and Hams is out for the season. For stats, Warriors have more points per game, points against. Rockets have a higher field goal percentage and have more rebounds per game. Warriors have more assists per game. Rockets have more blocks per game. Warriors have more steals per game. These stats are pretty close, so I think home field advantage is going to be a big thing here. So with that and the injuries for the Warriors, I think the Rockets will beat the Warriors tomorrow. Toronto Raptors versus Minnesota Timberwolves. The Raptors have a 32.8% chance to win. The Wolves have a 67.2% chance to win. This is at Minnesota. For injuries for the Raptors, Murray, Boyles, and Hepburn are out, and Ingram's a game time decision. For the Wolves, Ingles is out for personal reasons. For stats, the Wolves have more points per game, points against, higher field goal percentage, more rebounds per game. Raptors have more assists per game. Wolves have more blocks per game and steals per game. These stats are pretty close, so I think home field advantage is going to be a big thing here. So I think the Timberwolves will beat the Raptors tomorrow. Detroit Pistons versus San Antonio Spurs. The Pistons have a 48.5% chance to win, and the Spurs have a 51.5% chance to win. This is at San Antonio. For injuries for the Spurs, Fleming's out for a non-injury reason. Barnes is out. Ingram's a game time decision. And Jones Garcia is out for the year. For stats, Spurs have more points per game, points against. Field percentage is even. Spurs have more rebounds per game, assists per game. Pistons have more blocks per game and steals per game. These stats are pretty close, so I think home field advantage will be a big thing here. So I think the Spurs will beat the Pistons tomorrow. Los Angeles Lakers versus Denver Nuggets. The Lakers have a 34.3% chance to win, and the Nuggets have a 65.7% chance to win. This is at Denver. For injuries, for the Lakers, a game time decision. For the Nuggets, Jones, Gordon, and Watson are out, and Johnson is a game time decision. For stats, Nuggets have more points per game, points against. Lakers have a higher field goal percentage. Nuggets have more rebounds per game, assists per game. Lakers have more blocks per game and steals per game. These stats are pretty close, so I think home field advantage is going to be a big thing here. So I think the Nuggets will beat the Lakers tomorrow. And that's it for picks. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to my picks. Do you agree with them? Do you not? If you have different picks, you can put them in the comments. But other than that, please like, subscribe, and all that. Thank you for listening, and look forward to the next video.